Alison brought Katie into the room with her as usual. Alison acted as her usual playful self, only Katie wasn't laughing, and her eye contact was poor. Alison immediately knew that engaging Katie today would not be as easy as it usually was. When Alison tried asking what was wrong, Katie gave no answers, so she turned to Jackie. Katie seems to be very unhappy about being here now. Do you have any idea what's bothering her? She didn't seem upset when we drove over. Well, something is getting to her. Did anything happen since I saw her last? It was a hard Thanksgiving for the whole family, Alison. Maybe that's what's bothering her. Welcome back to the 11th episode of this now. Me discussing bits from Daniel Hughes' Building the Bonds of Attachment. The ongoing therapy case study, which I am still very passionate about. I know the last two videos, before then it hadn't been a while. I'd just been uploading them to Patreon, kind of unsure what to do, when to release them publicly, because the effect of a video doing bad always has quite an impact on my success in the algorithm, and with how crucial YouTube has become for my finances, it makes it risky, and this seems the best solution now, at the moment at least, to just upload them in an unlisted playlist, because how unlisted videos do doesn't affect your chances in the algorithm, so that's fine. It makes it harder for you to find these videos, but they're all still going to be there, and they're all still continuing. And like I said before, I'd get round to this episode pretty sharply, because the last one ended on a cliffhanger, if you remember. Last episode was the Thanksgiving dinner that went very wrong, when Katie spilled gravy over Jackie's sister Jane, and then a big fuss and an argument occurred when Jackie wouldn't just dismiss the whole thing like everybody else wanted her to. Because, no, Katie deliberately poured gravy all over Jane. That needs to be acknowledged. But things went even more wrong than that, and then they ended up having to drive all the way home through the middle of dinner, and it wasn't very nice. And Jackie's care became quite blocked. I think that's the important bit, really. Things have gone wrong before in the past, things have often been repaired, but that's harder when your care's blocked. I talked quite a bit about what it's like. Jackie was struggling to even look at Katie to begin with, for fear that she would lose her temper, and now this episode, here we are with the therapy session that follows all of that. There's not too much of the session to discuss that isn't similar to things that have been said in the past, however it is still worth showing the resolution. It's also quite moving. There's also stuff to see of Jackie to begin with, so shall we get going? You know, I've already quoted a rough bit of that session a minute ago as the introduction to this video, but we're actually going to go back a little before that. As you can hopefully remember, all these sessions begin first with Jackie and Alison talking one-to-one before Katie is then brought in. I've always said about how it's important for Jackie to get the support, but let's actually see some of that, you know? In fact, we're even going to go back a step further, because the morning after the Thanksgiving disaster, Jackie wakes up not feeling at all good. When she awoke the next morning, Jackie felt more discouraged than she could remember. She had hoped, with the new day, to discover her usual enthusiasm for life and her family. Not today. Not now. So then Mark wakes up and Jackie asks him to sort the breakfast and check on Katie a bit because Jackie needs time to think. Mark asks her if she wants to talk, but not at the moment, just some reflection on her own right now. The importance of doing this, of course, cannot be overstated. She thinks of her family, a little of childhood, then of Katie, and ends up finding herself praying. Her prayers led her through her numerous conflicting thoughts and feelings about Katie. From there she became aware of her sister's rejection of her, and of her own shame over Katie's behaviour at the Thanksgiving dinner. Suddenly, she became aware of how she had needed to have Katie meet her needs to garner validation from her relatives about her work with Katie. That awareness seemed to begin to make a difference. Maybe she could talk with Alison about it. Maybe that would help her know what to do. And it's at this point she then goes downstairs and talks to Katie and does a bit of the stuff she knows she should say to Katie and everything. Things, despite that, still aren't quite right. They don't feel right, but it does feel a little better. Sometimes it is as simple as becoming clear in your mind about why whatever experience matters so much to you, why it felt so big to you. Because, things went wrong at Thanksgiving. Oh no, they've gone wrong before. We've repaired it. It's not a problem, except it felt a massive problem to Jackie this time. It felt like a breaking point. I think it's easy in that situation to just go, oh, I'm being stupid, it doesn't matter, I've been through this before, forget about it, it's fine, and to try and force yourself to put it behind you, but it doesn't stop it gnawing away in your brain. It matters more to her for some reason. You can't just ignore that. So why does it matter? Sometimes therapists ask this sort of question, and sometimes people like to shrug it off with a I don't know, or I was being silly, it was nothing really, but it can be very important to get your head around why enough to then start to let it go. When people talk of the classic idea of therapy to understand yourself, it's much less the whole why am I the way I am, what happened in childhood that made me this way, as I guess it's often described. I tend to think it's much more, why do the feelings you're feeling now, why are they so big? And that could be to do with your past, yes, but it's relating it to the present and exploring how you feel now and helping you to maybe not feel that anymore, or resolve some of it, let some of it go properly. That's processing emotions, really. I think in the ideal world, when therapists talk about the end of therapy, that would be when you get so good at doing that stuff on your own that you don't need them anymore. And I think Jackie is already super good at doing this stuff, only she's under a highly intensive, stressful experience, and it doesn't matter how brilliant anyone is at anything, when there's a lot of stress, you 100% need support. Which of course is another general good thing to stress about therapy, that stigma that going means you're somehow weak. No, it doesn't. It just might mean you're under a lot of stress and you need support. Anyway, that's a tangent. Jackie talks to Allison about everything that happens and tells her the whole incident, and then we get this question. What do you think made it so hard for you, Jackie? Allison wondered. It was just that she did it deliberately, to upset me in front of my mum and Jane. And what about being with them made it more difficult for you? I'm not sure, Allison. At times it feels like I need my mum's approval for what I'm doing. And when I don't get it, it really bothers me. Allison nodded, and they sat there quietly for a few moments until Jackie continued. My mum is a good person, and I know that she loves me. I really do. I never doubted that. I think... But sometimes I had a feeling that for some reason she might be disappointed in me. It doesn't make sense in some ways, but I just didn't feel sure. I just never quite knew for sure. Could you give me an example, Jackie, of a time you might have had doubts about your mum's acceptance and love for you? Not love, Allison. I don't think I doubted her love, but acceptance. Yes. Jackie proceeds to tell a story of a time her mum asked her to do a load of cleaning in the house while she went out for work. Jackie forgot to do any of it, because that's how kids can be, and when her mum came back, she was not just angry about it. It was how she looked at me. She looked in a way that I felt I'd really let her down. I'd hurt her. I felt like she thought that I had done it deliberately. Like I wanted to hurt her. And I felt horrible that she would think that about me. And then I thought that maybe she was right. Maybe I was selfish and didn't really care if I hurt her or not. I wanted to show this really because it's nice to show at least some bits of more adult therapy in this series. I've got nothing much to say about it other than A, it's a good moment, and B, the idea that Jackie did that deliberately to hurt her mum. We already know Jackie feels Katie deliberately spilled the gravy to hurt Jackie. There's a link, even if the situations are different. Can we then wonder, though, if Katie received the exact same look that Jackie got from her mum in that situation? Perhaps there could be some transference going on there. Jackie talks more. She mentions about how Jane would never get that look from their mum. Jane was always perfect, but it felt to Jackie like no matter how hard she tried to win approval, she never could. I always seemed to do something that wasn't right, and I'd do mean things to Jane. I really hated her sometimes, and then Mum would be mad at me for being so mean to Jane. She seemed to think that Jane was such a wonderful big sister. Why couldn't I appreciate her, after all that she did for me? Jackie cries. I find it very relatable. She wasn't raised in a terrible family at all or anything, but I think Most of us, if not everyone, basically wants to be a good person, and even with the best of us, it doesn't take much scratching away at the surface to find some doubts and worries that maybe we aren't good, maybe I'm a bad person. The situation may seem small and insignificant, but it's not to Jackie. And I think that's the important bit. None of it makes Jackie's mum, Sarah, a bad mum. However, that doesn't mean you've not got the right to feel upset or disappointed with her at the same time. Parents do let you down sometimes. It doesn't mean they're bad. Feeling annoyed or let down about that doesn't mean you hate them. You're allowed to feel let down over certain things. You're allowed to feel disappointed, angry. Sometimes because the situation seems so small and apparently insignificant on the surface, despite it feeling more to you, and sometimes because everything's mostly okay, we can kind of guilt trip ourselves out of feeling let down, even when it is important to us. And I think Allison does a brilliant job of demonstrating this idea. Yeah, but don't get the wrong idea about them, Allison. They were not bad people. Mum really did love me, I know. And she worked hard and really did her best. And Jane did help me in a lot of ways. What do you think made you decide to tell me that, Jackie? You've mentioned a number of times now that you know your mum loved you. What a question. This stuff. Whenever I analyse or talk about therapy we see in films and TV and things, these are the bits that get me the most excited, when the therapist can spot something less conscious. Sometimes non-verbal, sometimes it's a dynamic occurring between them and the client, sometimes something very subtle like this that just hits on the real heart of it, The thing Jackie's heart is really trying to say, but she's not quite conscious enough herself to find the direct words for it. Why, and it does happen quite a lot in this conversation, I've obviously edited some bits down, but why does Jackie keep on stressing that she knows her mum loved her and was a good person? Well, they were good, they are good people. And saying these things about them to you, it just seems that somehow it's not right. Because, Allison said quietly, because it feels like I'm being selfish to say these things about them, especially Mum. Like I'm still putting myself first, still not being grateful for all that she did for me. And maybe she would still be disappointed in you if she knew that you were telling me all these things about her? Yes, Allison, she would. Tears were now flowing down Jackie's cheeks. And she would have a right to be. Jackie cries for a little, and then Allison comes back with this. Jackie, to me the question is not why you cannot be more grateful to her. My sense is that you are truly grateful. I think the question is more about what makes it so hard for you to accept that you feel some disappointment in how your mum related with you at times. It's weird wording that, it's hard to word it well. Disappointment in how your mum related with you at times. I think because it's hard to word well, it makes Jackie a bit defensive here, and she stresses that she's not disappointed in her mum, but no, that's not what Allison means. She's not disappointed with her mum, she's disappointed specifically about certain experiences with her mum. Not her as an entire person. It's a seemingly small distinction that I think we can all tend to struggle with, but it's a massive one. And it's exactly what we talk about every time I make the distinction between Jackie being angry, not at Katie herself, just at something she did. It is a big difference. Not one we're always good at feeling. Sometimes we do merge the two in our minds. When someone's annoyed at us, we feel like they're annoyed at all of us. They don't like us. We feel bad, shamed. Maybe they hate us. Maybe they won't want to talk to us anymore. But no, maybe they love you, just have an issue about something specific that they want to resolve because they love you. There's more to this session here with Jackie. They go an extra level deep, which we won't discuss other than to say Allison tells Jackie, maybe you were a 10-year-old kid, and maybe you were not trying to make her life more difficult, and maybe if your mum did think you were selfish, she was wrong. Jackie began to cry. But why, Allison? Why would she think that I was deliberately trying to make her unhappy if I really wasn't? Which is a very good question, and they do talk more here. I don't think I need to show it all though. I think generally it's a great example to show exactly how we form an idea of ourselves out of the way others look and think about us. A small part of Sarah, for whatever reason, maybe even just a small part, perceived to think that Jackie was selfish, and Jackie internalised that idea. And she started to think maybe I am, and then ended up spending years trying to do as good as she possibly could, showing how much she cared as though to offset this deeper feeling about being someone selfish. It is very sad, but it's about to get even sadder, because it's time to bring in Katie. So I began this episode with a quote kicking off their session. I should probably pull it up again. Alison is being her playful self. Katie is not responding to any of it, and when Alison asks what's wrong, Katie avoids answering, so we get... Katie seems to be very unhappy about being here. Do you have any idea what's bothering her? She didn't seem upset when we drove over. Well, something is getting to her. Did anything happen since I saw her last? It was a hard Thanksgiving for the whole family, Alison. Maybe that's what's bothering her. I find this absolutely wonderful. You know why? Katie understands these sessions are for talking about her feelings, something she often struggles to do because feelings are scary. And again, here, Alison first tries asking Katie what's wrong, and Katie doesn't answer her. On the surface, it looks like Katie's shutting down in response to that, but think back. When before has Katie come to a session and shown that she feels unhappy? Actually shown it in her mood and behaviour. That's never happened. She'll normally play up to the charming Katie, or else turn into the angry Katie when she feels threatened by a specific thing, but showing sadness, or at least a bad mood. Sure, she might not be able to talk about it and explain why or want to, but she knows this is a space for her feelings, she knows she can be trusted to show them, so she is expressing it now, and that in itself is so wonderful. I don't think we often appreciate that enough, actually, how much trust it can mean when someone dares to show you their sadness. She wants their care and attention to her feelings, even if she still also doesn't fully want it at the same time. Anyway, Alison already knows the story of Thanksgiving because she's talked to Jackie about it, but they're kind of speaking about it in front of Katie as a way to express Katie's feelings without her having to express them herself, you know? That same odd trick again. Jackie explains what happened and suggests Katie might be mad for not being able to get away with the whole gravy incident. But she's always getting annoyed at you for not getting away with doing something that she should not be doing. Generally, she doesn't get nearly so mad at you. You're right, Alison. Maybe it's because of my reaction to what she did. What was your reaction, Jackie? I was very mad. You see, my mother and sister got angry with me and we all left early. I was crying a lot, and Diane yelled at Katie. All night I didn't talk to Katie. That's the only time I ever stopped talking to her when she did something wrong. So I think it's understandably an event that left Katie sad and withdrawn and very, very confused. She did something bad that finally got Jackie really angry, just as happened with all her previous foster parents, only it's a bit different this time. One, because Jackie hasn't kicked Katie out or anything, and did try to repair things the following morning, so that feels confusing. Are things okay, or aren't they? It doesn't feel right, but she's trying to act like it is. Jackie's saying things are okay, but she still got really angry with me the night before, and wouldn't speak to me at all, so I'm not sure. And B, yeah, things still don't feel fully right anyway, and C, Katie is a lot closer to Jackie than her other foster parents, so it hurts. I finally did start to open up my heart, and Jackie stomps on it. She's made me regret doing that. Either way, it's a wonderful step forwards that in things going wrong, Katie isn't feeling triumphant and victorious and delighted about it, even if she did in the moment, but she's actually sad. She's not blocking the feeling. That is wonderful to see. Alison turned to Katie. I'll bet you were saying to yourself, why is she so mad at me? Good mums aren't supposed to get so mad. She's not allowed to get mad at me that much, right, Katie? Katie said nothing. She looked towards the couch. Oh, Katie, now I understand. She got so mad and you didn't know what that meant. Maybe she'd never stop being mad. Maybe she'd become like Sally. Alison sat motionless for a moment, then leaned forward and said quietly, You must have thought that she might be hating you, that she might not love you anymore, that she might not want to be your mum anymore. Katie remained motionless. Alison then said even more quietly, "You must have started to feel sad and scared. No wonder you're mad at your mum." There's a little more here. Jackie moves a bit closer and holds Katie's hand during this, to which Katie did not move, either toward her or away from her. Alison whispered, Katie, it was so hard, so sad, so scared. Katie, so hard, so sad, Katie." "Don't say that!" Katie screams. "Don't say that!" Jackie put her arm around Katie and began to gently rock her, and Alison repeated the words that reached into Katie's soul a second time. Katie continued to yell, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!" though Alison was no longer speaking. As the moments passed, her yells changed. The rage became more and more a despair. Her screams became the cries of one abandoned to the night. Alison whispered once again, Katie, so sad." Katie's cries continued. Jackie pulled her up onto her lap. Katie buried her face into Jackie's chest. My Katie, you're safe. You're with Mum. I love you, Katie. I love my Katie." Katie clung to her. She clung to her as a baby would, a terrified, despairing baby. Alison then goes across the room and puts a CD on of gentle lullabies. Alison hesitated to play it because it might encourage Katie's feelings of being an infant too much, causing her to resist. But Katie accepted it. And Jackie just rocks and hums in time with the music for a long time. Katie cries and holds tight to Jackie. Alison says nothing. They were in their own world now. This world would heal and reach Katie more than anything Alison might do or say. You know, sometimes the best resolution isn't just two people saying sorry. Sometimes it's a hug that really shows things are okay. It doesn't matter we've had problems before, genuinely doesn't matter, and really being able to show it's okay starts here with Katie being able to express via Alison what she felt. That Jackie didn't want to be her mum anymore, and how scared and angry and alone that might have made Katie feel. And I think from Jackie's perspective, in realising that again, in remembering just how much Katie is a hurt, scared child, reignites Jackie's empathy and love for her once again. And this scene is so similar to the whole "it's not your fault" scene in Good Will Hunting. And again, I have to stress, you cannot just do this sort of thing with a client. This could be horrendously painful an experience for Katie. Part of reading it there, when you see it like that, could make what Alison says really patronising. You could... I mean, this is a kid, so it's slightly different, but you can see how this sort of thing could be terribly bad. And I don't mean painful in the sad sense of crying, because that's good here. It's sad, but it's also relieving. It's comforting. I mean, instead, Alison sitting there repeating "so sad, so scared" could have made Katie super defensive and resistant, and it could have been super harmful. This A isn't just something you lunge into hoping it works. B, Katie has to be the age she is, I think, to do it in this way. And C, Alison has to genuinely be feeling empathy and be super sincere in what she's doing. Otherwise it is going to come across really weird and a bit disturbing. And in a way, Katie did push back. She did yell and told Alison to shut up. However, whatever it was, something in all of that must have signalled to Alison that it was okay for her to proceed. Alison started with something small and not quite too deep, and then went a level down and waited to see Katie's reaction and how it felt, and then went a level further. And then Jackie held Katie's hand, and yeah, she didn't lean in towards Jackie, but she didn't push away then either, so that made it okay to proceed a little further, and then a little further. Whatever it was, whatever you can't convey in script, Alison would have been picking up signals that it was okay to proceed, that Katie's able to be sad in this moment now, which is then what did come out. So yeah, that goes without saying. If Katie was not in the right place and the right frame of mind for this sort of thing at that time, it could have been incredibly harmful to push this We've seen smaller examples of this sort of thing in past sessions. This is the next step, I guess, in that way. And as it was incredibly healing for both Jackie and Casey. It's wonderful. And that's actually the end of the chapter as well. The one after is about the resolution and work between Jackie and her mum following the Thanksgiving incident. It's quite an interesting, heartfelt chapter, but not essential to the story, so I may or may not skip that one. We'll see what we do. And I'm not sure when the next episode will be. Again, as ever, I'll notify you if you're on Patreon. And if you're not, all these videos are currently unlisted in an unlisted playlist. So I'll upload it there at some point and make some sort of community post. So yeah, if you're not a Patreon, look out for community posts about another episode, or else keep checking the playlist to see if one appears. It might be a slightly longer gap before the next one, but yeah, as ever, like the video, comment, support me on Patreon if you do fancy that, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Janice McMahon, Luke Core, Treachu Kaber, Michael Gallagher, InSquares, Flying Spider, Samara Salsi, Joshua C. Follier and Chad Bramwell. Thank you.